This is a question I've wrestled with for probably about a month now after doing my most recent Nightmare on Elm Street rewatch. Should Nancy have survived? Now, I normally don't have a problem with the deaths of recurring characters if it actually is given some kind of, legacy and importance and significance. But if you look at, the Nightmare on Elm Streets after part 3, Nancy really has no verbal presence. And a lot of that has to do with the very strange choice to not use the character of Neil, who she grew the closest to over the course of the third film and could very easily have served as a recurring menace to Freddy that would still have like an organic reason for being there, even if he wasn't affected by this as a teenager. You could say, hey, I may not be one of the Elm Street kids, but I want to keep Nancy's memory alive by making sure that Freddy is prevented from getting all of them, and whatnot. So with him not being there, and with the Dream Warriors, who, again, had some type of relationship with Nancy, being taken out relatively early into the fourth film, there's not much of an in-universe reason to bring her up, but there's also no one left to kind of mention her at all, which is sad to think about because, if you look at other horror series, there's plenty of Halloweens where Laurie isn't around and they still bring her up. So, keeping her alive actually wouldn't be that difficult. You don't have to change that much about the subsequent installments. For part 4, you could have her as a teacher at the school. You could have her as someone who, maybe if she's not directly working around, the Dream Warriors, she still keeps in contact with them. And then after they get taken out one by one, she then tries to assist Alice and kind of, warn her of what could happen to her as well if she doesn't get her powers under control. And you kind of contrast it with having this experienced final girl who doesn't have powers, but is, making up for it in terms of her knowledge of what they're facing, with this inexperienced final girl who is powerful enough to stop the villain, but needs the guidance to do it. And then when you get to the 5th installment, you could also have her there when, Alice is trying to stop Freddy from corrupting her baby. Now, the other issue you might run into is that we would have to create an organic reason for Freddy to not be trying to kill her anymore. What I would have happen, for example, if we're rewriting part 3, is that, she gets like heavily injured, cut up, whatever, in some area, but survives, to Freddy's surprise, or to the surprise of the audience, who may have thought that in that moment of her being hit or impaled that she was dead. And from then on, he's like, you know what? I kind of admire that resourcefulness, and I also take great amusement in seeing that desire for a normal person to think that they can stop me. So I'll just let her kind of roam around and be sort of a warner of what I am, who still doesn't have the power herself to actually defeat me. Now, one problem that permeates Scream is that a lot of people will criticize, for example, Sydney for not having character development, more so in the latter part of the series, like 1 and 2. She's certainly different from how she was between those two movies. And so with Nancy, the other issue is trying to give her a way to be in the plot that always gives her something unique to do. If you're, for example, having part 4 play out the way that it did before, you can still have her in that mentorship role from part 3, but more of an acknowledgement that she can't be as directly involved physically with this stuff as she used to, because she almost got killed. And if she dies, there's not going to be a person who's around to kind of make it plain to people, hey, Freddy's back. And, you don't have her do it in a way necessarily where she's like, oh, Alice, go fight this threat by yourself. She's still willing to put her life on the line, but this would be the organic reason for like giving her some kind of physical threat to face, like in the real life setting, while Alice would go into the dream world and face Freddy herself. But also, just to kind of tie things together, if we were doing, this alternate part 5 or, part 6, and I don't even want to imagine part 6 right now. That movie drives me nuts. But if we were talking about having her in, the 2 films with Alice, you could have her married to Neil and possibly have a family of her own. And this would be the motivation to, I guess, finally take Freddy down definitively. Maybe he traps her kid in the dream world or starts messing with them. The one downside is that if we keep her around, for 4, 5, and then 6, which I'd have to completely rewrite 6 to even make that a movie that would be worth her appearing in. You're going to run into the issue of possibly not getting New Nightmare, because one of the appeals of that movie was, hey, our beloved protagonist from the first and third film has returned, except not really, but sort of. And if you keep her around for most of them, it's not going to have, at least as far as I can tell in this, alternate scenario we're doing, the same appeal, because it's not like you can't be missed if you never left. So I guess it would be a shame to lose that. But then again, part 7, or I guess A New Nightmare, in large part was developed from a dissatisfaction by both Wes Craven and general audiences with how unserious Freddy became by the end of the series. So if you had Nancy there and a more serious tone, you wouldn't necessarily need New Nightmare. Like, I guess people would still miss the the whole aspect of life imitating art and fiction blending with reality. But I guess I'm willing to possibly not have it if it means a more consistent series in terms of quality. And I don't want to be one of these people who's always upset that a character gets killed off. I know that that's often a trope that's employed to raise the stakes of a story. But whether you're talking about, Rachel in Halloween 5 or, again, Nancy in Nightmare Part 3, it tends to have this ripple effect where the series overall is hurt by the absence of that character in, later installments. And in the immediate installment, there's really not much time or actual punch to their demise, either because it happens and no one talks about it, or it happens so close to the end that they don't have anything they can really do to show how other people are dwelling on it. So this is more so me saying I would have been fine with Nancy being killed off if people liked Alice as much as Nancy, but also if they had given Nancy some proper legacy in the installments after part 3, where she's just kind of like forgotten about entirely. And that's why, for me, it would be preferable if she were kept around for the rest of the series.